Hello, my name is Ruslan. Today I'll tell you a crazy story you won't forget.
The night our county burned, my husband's name appeared on my own evacuation list, but under someone else's address. As a household member with a woman I'd never heard of and a 6-year-old boy, I run the hotline that builds those lists. I typed the names myself. And there he was, Evan Hale, co-resident. Ran Kuwait's dependent, Theo 6. While our house filled with smoke, a different life with my husband's name. On it was breathing clean air somewhere else. This is the story of how a wildfire drew a map of my marriage and showed me every room I didn't know he lived in. My name is Nora Vale, 36, County Emergency Coordinator. I know where the generators hide in old schools. I know which church basements have cots that don't squeak. My husband, Evan, is a utility lineman. Storm teams, bucket trucks, the glitter of sparks like mean stars. We were a practical love. Steel-toe boots by the door, coffee in thermoses, flans stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a lighthouse. A year before the fire we'd had a quiet failure. A pregnancy that started like an unopened letter and ended like one too. We buried a seedling under the eucalyptus and went back to work. Neither of us was good at grief with witnesses. I tell you that because marriage is a house built on the ground you've got, not the ground you wish for. And ours had fault lines we labeled timing, shifts, and we'll talk later. The red flag warning came with wine that sounded like bad advice. At 11:24 a.m., lightning found the canyon where old brush keeps old promises. By noon we had 3 spot fires. By 2 p.m., the map looked like a child's painting done with gasoline. The shelter intake system is ugly and perfect. Names, addresses, pets, medications, emergency contacts. We build the evacuation list to track the living and the lost. When the grid flickers and cell towers kneel, the list becomes a prayer we can print. I filtered for our neighborhood to see which of our elderly had checked in. That's when I saw it. Kuwait's, Ran 88 Corey Bendardi, household. Ran Kuwait's 31. Theo Kuwait's 6, Evan Hale 39. My fingers went cold. The screen looked wrong, like it belonged to a slightly different universe. I called Evan, straight to voicemail. That happens on storm days. I told myself that sentence twice. At 5:10 p.m., a shelter runner radioed, Corey Bend family arrived. Boys asking for Evan. Boy, asking for Evan. I printed the page, put it in my pocket, and started the checklists I could do blindfolded. Generators, water, cots, meds. I said out loud to no one, do the job. The job steadied my hands. Maple High School smelled like bleach and gym floor. Families came in with smoke in their hair and determination in their mouths. I scanned badges, made eye contact, said the line we all say, you're safe now. Then the door opened and a little boy with freckles came in holding a Lego lunchbox. Theo. He looked around the way kids do when they're calling a roll inside their chest. Behind him, a woman tall, dark ponytail, soot thumbprint on her cheek ran. The volunteer at registration said, household from Corey Bend. My printer page in my pocket crinkled like a secret. Hi, I said, voice steady from practice. I'm Nora, Ren, she said. This is Theo. Do you have anyone to call? I asked. She started, then changed the word midair. Our friend, Evan, he's on a line crew. Do you know his last name? Hale, she said, like the word had always belonged in her mouth. If betrayal has a temperature, mine was room temp polite. I asked about medications, allergies, pets. I wrote the answers neatly. I gave Theo a blanket with stars on it. He lined the stars up with his thumb and did not cry. Ren's hands shook only when she sat down. At 8:40 p.m., Theo climbed onto a cot with the terrible bravery of children. Ren stepped into the hall to call someone, and I followed at the professional distance we learn on day one. Voicemail, she muttered, staring at her screen. The contact name read Evan Work. Beneath it, a text chain, photos of a backyard soccer net, a photo of Theo holding a fishing pole, and a message from last week. Proud of you, buddy, from Evan. I swallowed a metal taste and walked back into the gym. The list in my pocket warmed against my leg like a fever. Wine shifts make liars of maps. By midnight, Corey Bend was under a hard evac. I moved between cots with a clipboard while my marriage rearranged itself without me. At 12:36 a.m., my radio popped. Utility Unit 7 off shift. Hale returning to base. I stepped into the loading dock and called again. Voicemail. At 1:10 a.m., a text. Evan. Alive. Can't talk. West line down. I typed, where are you? No answer. I asked the shelter runner for the Kuwait's intake sheet. On the back, in the volunteers' neat block letters. Out address friends. 17 Drift Court. I knew that cul-de-sac. New builds, vinyl fences, ornamental pears that drop fruit like gossip. Our house was 4 miles away. He'd never said drift court to me in our entire marriage. At 2:20 a.m., I drove there in a county truck with a light bar I didn't use. Embers fell like slow snow. The house at 17, Drift had a chalk hopscotch, burned into the sidewalk in 10 black squares. A bicycle leaned against a fence. A ceramic frog sat on the porch with a key under its mouth. I know where people hide spare keys. It's my job to know things. I didn't touch the frog. Through the front window I saw 2 framed photos on a hallway table. Ren with Theo at a county fair, and another of Evan with Theo, both in soccer jerseys. The small boy pride almost visible like heat. No kiss pictures. No arms around each other. The cruelty of it was not the romance. It was the domesticity. The ordinary belonging of my husband in a house with a boy who called him coach and a woman who looked like a person, who solved problems with lists. I took pictures. I took a breath that sounded like the end of something. Then I drove back to the shelter and finished the night of my job as if the world were not 2 addresses wide. Morning found the gym bright and ugly. The fire chewed in a new direction. Coffee tasted like a dare. I tucked my hair behind my ears and became a machine that makes order. When we're not saving people, we're doing paperwork. Paperwork is a kind of truth. I pulled utility service records for 17 Drift legally, because the county tracks damaged meters during disasters. The account holder was Ren Coates. The authorized payer added last spring, he Hale. I checked youth sports rosters for the community league. We coordinate field permits. Coach, Hale. Team, U7 Quarry Bend Comets. Players, Theo Coates. I checked school visitor logs. We supply the printers that spit out stickers. Visitor, Evan Hale. Relationship, emergency contact. Purpose, pickup, Coates, Theo. Proof is heavy. I stacked it carefully until I knew it wouldn't fall on me when I pushed. At lunch I walked to the playground behind the school and sat on a bench where ash fell in polite pieces. Evan sat down at the other end like a man who has spotted a cliff and is choosing to look at the ocean. Hey, he said. How long? I asked. He didn't ask how long what. He looked at the chain link fence. 1.5 years. Is he yours? No. The answer came fast. His dad was a lineman in my crew. Caleb Coates. He died on a storm 2 summers ago. He rubbed his hands. I was there when the pole gave. We were supposed to be tied off. He wasn't. I told Ren I'd be around. It turned into more than around. Did you sleep with her? Evan stared at the swing set, then nodded once. For a while. Not lately. I don't. It isn't. He swallowed. It isn't the point you're asking about. It's one of them, I said. He said the linemen say to wives after long shifts. I was trying to help. You built a second address, I said. Voice calm like paperwork. You were an emergency contact in a house I didn't know. That isn't help. That's a life. He nodded like a student taking a hard note. I know. A beat. I don't know how to stop being useful to them without feeling like I'm betraying a ghost. There it is, I said. You were faithful to the dead and faithless to the living. We sat with that between us while the sky chose a color. By afternoon the fire found a new canyon, and the wind remembered its old bad habits. Quarry Bend began to burn in lines like someone had drawn them. We opened a second shelter at the ice rink, where the air stayed brave and cold. Ren and Theo were relocated. I watched them arrive as a professional and as a wife and learn it. How to be both without breaking in half. Theo clutched a dinosaur and asked the intake volunteer, "Will Coach Evan come here?" "I don't know, kiddo," the volunteer said. "But you're safe." Ren caught my eye and walked over. "Thank you for last night," she said. "You're very good at this. Disasters bring out whatever we train," I said. She hesitated. "I don't know if you know this, but, Evan." "I know," I said gently. "I work with the lists." Her face changed. Her shoulders came down. "I'm sorry," she said, and I believed her. He saved us. Not from the fire. From being a room that echoed. She looked at Theo. I told myself that didn't hurt anyone. I was wrong. My radio popped. "Hail to Maple. We've got it downed." Primary near the rink need eyes inside. The rink lights flickered, then steadied. Ren put a hand over her mouth the way people do when they're catching grief. "He won't stop," she whispered. "Not until the line's safe," I said. At 6:02 p.m., Evan walked into the rink in his flame-damaged jacket, smelling like the part of the forest you don't step on. Theo sprinted to him and slammed into his knees. Evan lifted him like a father would. Habit is a kind of confession. He saw me over Theo's shoulder and nodded like a man accepting a verdict. Ren watched us with a brave stillness. An entire life stood in a triangle on an ice rink, while ash fell outside like gray confetti. I asked for a conference room, the kind that used to host junior hockey parties and now held to chairs and a table and a sign that said, Volunteers only. The three of us sat. Someone's leftover birthday banner drooped in the corner. Happy missing its why. I placed the printouts on the table. Utility records. Roster lists, visitor logs. I didn't raise my voice. I organized the proof into piles. Evan said, I didn't mean to make a second life. Ren said, I didn't mean to steal a husband. I said, meaning happens anyway. We made rules for the next 48 hours, the kind you make during disasters. 1. No contact outside shelter logistics. 2. No explanations to the kid. 3. No secrets that create safety risks. Then we talked the way people do when the truth is finally heavier than the consequences. I learned Evan had a drawer at Drift Court with 3 t-shirts and a toothbrush. I learned he kept a soccer whistle in his truck and explained away the noise when I found it once under the seat. I learned he'd promised to build Theo a treehouse this fall after fire season. I told them about the seedling under the eucalyptus and the letter I wrote to a child I never met. I told them I'd been lonely with him. A specific kind of weather you can only report from inside it. Ren cried the quiet tears of competent people. I kept telling myself, she said, that grief is a hall pass. It isn't. It's just a map you have to learn. Evan looked at me like a man who wants a form to fill out for forgiveness. There is no form. I said the only true sentence I had. This ends. He nodded. Okay. With you leaving them. With me telling the truth, he said. And then doing whatever the truth costs. The next morning the fire slowed. Not because of us, but because all fires end. Even the ones we name after our street. We began the long work of letting people go home to what was left. At the rink, Evan knelt to Theo's height. I watched from a distance you measure with a ruler and with a life. He said something, and Theo's little face learned the shape of disappointment, and then the shape of dignity. Kids are brutal and holy like that. Theo nodded. He handed Evan the dinosaur. For when you coach other kids, he said. Evan's mouth broke. He cried into his dirty sleeve like a person. Ren put a hand on Theo's shoulder and did not look away. I signed their release to a hotel voucher and added a note. Ask for a room with a window that opens. That's not a county policy. That's a human policy. After, Evan and I stood by the Zamboni door. He said, I'll move into a motel. You'll move out, I said. From everything. He nodded. From everything. Don't come home, I added, and heard how old those words are. He took off his wedding ring and placed it in my hand. Not because I don't want to wear it, he said. Because it's not mine to wear right now. I know, I said. I'll keep it with the important papers. We are not dramatic people. We didn't throw anything. We didn't whisper promises we couldn't afford. We did what we've always done, made a plan on. A bad day and followed it until it turned into an ordinary day we could live with. A month later, post-fire debrief, the county gave me a plaque that said for service above self. I put it in a drawer with the ring and the evacuation list printout where Evan's name lives under a second address. Some truths don't belong on walls. If you ask me what betrayal is, I'll say, it's when love builds a spare room without telling you, and fills it with the parts of them you used to host. Sometimes it's a body. Sometimes it's a calendar. Sometimes it's a whistle in a glove box that you mistake for a noise you imagined. I don't know yet if our marriage will end or molt. Papers are easy. People change slow. Evan swings with a new crew now. Ren and Theo moved in with her sister, while insurance argues with the wind. I still run shelters when the sky decides to be dangerous. And sometimes, on quiet afternoons, I drive past 17 Drift Court and count the ornamental pears and tell myself the important thing. I could live in one address at a time. Tell me in the comments, is an affair with obligation still an affair? And if a disaster drew a map of your life, what second addresses would it show that you've never said out loud?
Crazy, right? Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.